My name is Wojtek Kutyla, and well, thank you for coming to the conference. I'm a freelance service design consultant, and I'm surprised to see how much is being spoken about service design at an Agile conference. I really love this. This is really important. And today we've had some amazing stuff, so I'll see what I can do about keeping the standard, but if it falls low, then just don't judge me, please. Be nice, okay? Today really is about re-evaluating Agile in a way that I would like to ask you some questions maybe that would make you think. I'm an Agile practitioner myself. I've been in the industry for good 12 or 13 years working as a UX consultant and service design consultant, so exposed to many organizations, big and small. I've spent my time at RBS in Gogarbernat. I've been working with other banks, insurance companies, but also a lot with public sector, so I know their pains. So today in the morning, when I've heard in presentations about all these struggles that these guys have, I can totally feel for them, and I know what it's like. Well, I wanted to start this with a bit of a nostalgia kind of factor here. Think of the early internet. Do you remember how when we had our mobile phones in our hands for the first time, or even that modem that was doing kind of these funny sounds, how you were thinking that the thing you're looking at, the internet, is just magic? I remember my first mobile phone. It was quite hard to carry it in a pocket. It was rather big, and my dad had one of those that you would carry in a kind of suitcase-like thing, you remember? Pretty brutal. And then obviously other things have kicked in, we've had movies from the internet. I'm not saying download it illegally, but back then nobody knew that you could do it in any other way, And then we've had games that at first were like to fit just on a little floppy disk, and then they were coming to you on CDs, and then obviously you were downloading them from the internet. Magic everywhere. And that first moment when you got your iPhone, you had your iPhone and you were able to send an email to somebody just like that from your pocket on the bus. All this stuff was absolutely incredible, and it has formed our understanding of how the digital shapes our environment. So now the situation is different. Technology is commonplace. There's no more magic. It's everywhere. I mean, just in the previous presentation we've had, or one of the previous presentations we've had, a lady stating that everybody's checking their phone so often, every day. 6 seconds from the moment that email arrives in your mailbox to the moment you check it. I mean, that's just crazy. And we're not even thinking about it. It's so normal. We are now making people's lives easier or more complicated, as we'll see in a minute, by giving them access, by giving ourselves access to technology. And there is nothing magical about that, not anymore. This is a very important thing because obviously we live in times of economy of attention. Have you heard that term before? Economy of attention. If you are wondering what it is basically you sitting on the toilet in the morning looking at your Instagram. That's economy of attention. Yeah? It's really quite hard to be human. The thing is though that we've made this. It didn't really come up like this, it wasn't really planted here by aliens like some people say, there's so much stuff happening in the digital and around us that it really makes our life quite strange at times. Of course, we could say that we've created a universe, and that universe is spinning very fast, and we now have not only incredible access to information and so many means at our hands that are potentially that things that are making our lives easier, but also so many things that don't quite work, like things that are not talking to each other, systems that are not talking to each other, surveillance, power, hacking, depression, oppression, you name it, all those kind of things that are around us. I think one of the things for me, considering that I was always interested in ethics and aspects of digital that are connected to philosophy, is that we've made it. We, as the society. It didn't really, as I say, come from nowhere. It wasn't really planted on Earth. That's an effect of our work. And well, today I wanted to talk to you about my experience of Agile in that context, in the context of experiencing something that at times makes me wonder, why the hell are we doing this? It's really quite strange, and how can we help it? How can we solve it? So this is a carrot. I have photographed, I've made this carrot because I think it represents Agile very well. It's a bit of a mutant. Well, I started looking at all of this years ago when I really came to the UK. That was my first exposure to Agile methodology. And I remember working for a very large telecom company. I can't really tell you which one is it. And I remember walking into that office, me back then, a web designer, you know, that was like, I don't know, 15 years ago or something, walking in and seeing this huge writing on the wall. Huge open plan space, of course, so you know you would never meet all the people that work there. And they had this huge thing written there, it's all about delivery. And I was like, wow, I don't actually even kind of understand what that means in this context. I thought it's something to do with food, but it wasn't. I most often think things are to do with food, and then I'm disappointed they are not. But now, after all these years, I actually understand what it meant. You know, we are working like a 70s car industry, or like another industry that's really based on this whole concept that what really matters is that thing at the very end. And that's exactly what they've meant. It wasn't to do with the quality of customer service. We were selling broadband. It wasn't to do with the help that we could offer people. It was to do with numbers, If we had more broadband customers at the end of the month, that was the thing. Not to mention the fact that most of them were actually calling us like angry every 5 minutes, telling my broadband doesn't work, That was alright, but we had them, So, well, there's something around that really makes me uneasy. If we concentrate on an outcome first instead, that might actually work entirely different. So, at that time actually, being exposed to this huge it's all about delivery thing, I also got exposed to this amazing thing called Agile. My boss came to me one day and he said, dude, you have to read this book, read this another book and whatnot. In effect, actually, I remember this thing, mainly this thing. The original Agile Manifesto. That was so cool. Not only that I learned the new word manifesto back then, which was really cool, but also made me think, well, actually, the shit we're gonna build is gonna work for people. It's gonna be amazing, We're gonna have interactions with others. That's just incredible. Less sitting and like talking on meetings and doing meaningless stuff. It'd be all about interactions, and then we'll have actually working software. That's wow, working software. I've never heard of that before, never had that, never produced that, so it might work. And we'll collaborate with the customer, that's gonna be incredible. We're gonna go after them and ask them questions. How does it work for you? What would you like us to build next? How are we gonna make it rock? I was so excited. And at the end, of course, we had responding to change, which back at the time, well, that was just magic. I couldn't really even imagine how could that work, considering that everything that I've been producing was coming to me in forms of like briefs and project initiation documents, and everywhere was the waterfall. We all felt like a waterfall thing. Of course, nowadays, this very well. So many organizations that we work with think they are doing Agile, but actually what they're doing just a waterfall thing called Agile because it's cool. So, well, let's talk about these things and keep them in mind. How did our world really truly change? Have you heard of golf course deals? Yeah? Have you ever been exposed to those? When somebody's walking into the room and they say, we're going to build a website and it's going to be powered by Microsoft SharePoint. And then you ask yourself, who is this for and what? No, it's going to be powered by Microsoft SharePoint and we're going to build it and it's going to be here in 2 weeks' time. And then you're looking at your colleagues and somebody says, fuck, what's SharePoint? And another person says, is this thing we were fighting with for like last half a year, it didn't work. All right, what's that website for? It's a blog. What? Yeah, I've been in those situations. A blog on a SharePoint. Crazy stuff, right? But it's being built because we can. And the real reason for that is that somewhere there, when you were having your nice Saturday breakfast, there was a golf course meeting, or perhaps some people were playing golf and one said, we can sell you 10,000 Microsoft computers and SharePoint will come free on the top of all of this. And somebody else said, yes, count me in. Yeah? So they had that. Happens very, very often. And I know that probably you cannot really say this, obviously, but I'm sure that if you really thought about this for a second, it would click somewhere there. You've heard that before. And then things are happening so very, very fast. We are rarely thinking about things. We are just doing them. We are building them. Who's a developer? Do we have developers in the room? A couple of you guys, yeah? Are you familiar with the idea of a web framework? A thing that you can use to build services and websites faster. Yeah? Really cool thing to build things fast. But then it's a bit like with, let's say, a lasagna. Who likes lasagna? Most of us likes lasagna, yeah? Like lasagna. So imagine that you want a lasagna tonight. You have two choices. First one is you go to Tesco's on your way back and you buy a lasagna, kind of, yeah? Then you put it into the microwave and then you have it, and yes, you just had a lasagna for dinner. How cool is that? Was that really a lasagna though? No, it wasn't, right? To really eat something good, you either have to go to a restaurant where there are some people who know how to make it, or you need to learn how to do it yourself. And that's exactly the analogy of frameworks. We can have a website in 2 days. Do we understand how we've actually built it? No, we don't, but it works. It's amazeballs. Speed, yeah? Efficiency. There's even a person who actually wrote a book about this, Paul Virilio, a philosopher, who argued that today it's really not economy of change or economy of anything else but speed. Really a painful concept when you apply it to digital. Would anyone truly benefit from this? I don't know, maybe they would, but hard to find them. Imagine this, you are planning a holiday, you talk to your partner and you say, let's go snowboarding to Switzerland. And they say, nah, you know, we've been to Switzerland last year, why don't we go surfing to Morocco? And then you go like, yeah, okay, actually surfing's right, but let's call our friends because we're going with them. And they say, oh, we don't surf, can we go hiking instead? And then you're thinking, hiking, maybe some surfing, yeah, okay, let's go hiking. It's all good. Logic, it just applies, it's logical. Same with planning a dinner or going to the cinema. And then, when we walk into one of our offices, that logic is gone. Nobody's asking for rational. Nobody's asking for reasons. Nobody's asking you whether you wanted a Tesla or a Dacia. You're gonna get a fucking Dacia anyway. Just because that's what they have. Just because somebody woke up and said, we're gonna do an MVP of this. Minimum viable product. And who's gonna decide about that? Well, people who are actually gonna build the product. Are we gonna ask our users about what they want? No, we're not gonna ask them. Why would we ask them? We know how much resource we have. So let's just build an MVP and give that to them, yeah? And I was always actually quite surprised about the fact that, you know, we are doing all these things in our daily lives. All this logic applies to everything that we do, to our careful planning, to our careful scheduling. And then when we are actually at work, this is all evaporating. We are not different humans when we work. We are just the same people, you know. We have the same desires, the same thoughts, the same processes go through our heads. But then suddenly, you know, just in a slightly different way. Have you heard of this? This is really cool. Somebody's waking up one day and they say, I have a dream. That dream was just like the most amazing dream I've ever had. And let's just build this. So Mary, John, Stephen, you are forming an agile team. You guys are forming the second team and you have 2 weeks to deliver this and it's going to be awesome. So then you keep on going because it's all about delivery. And you are delivering this thing at the very end and you're putting it in front of people and they say, what is this? What's that thing doing? And you say, well, it's doing this. But I never wanted this in the first place. Why are you giving me this? I wanted that. Oh, oops, sorry. Well, you know, we didn't ask. So, again, you know, how much do we need this behavior? Do we actually want to produce stuff that works for people? I don't know if you know, but the environmental impact of what we do is huge. We all run computers, we all run smartphones. Do you know, whenever you buy a smartphone, you've actually just by that act, you've used as much energy as you would use for 3 years in a row, 24/7 running that smartphone from mains. Yeah? And there's software running in it. Somebody wrote that software. I mean, all of us in some way participated in the creation of such solutions and such ideas. So, you know, should we do it? Should we not do it? Should we do it just because we can? Interesting. And deadlines. I was always fascinated by the idea of deadlines. Have you actually ever managed to ask anyone, why is there a deadline there and how is it set? I mean, why is it Tuesday and not Thursday? I always thought, you know, first time when I heard about the idea of a deadline, I thought that if I don't keep it, there's gonna be like a meteorite shower maybe, or like an apocalypse. Something's gonna burn, certainly. And then, well, other than my own brains, nothing really was burning, you know. So where's that coming from? Why all that speed? Why are we doing all of this? Why are we actually inflicting so much impact, so much damage upon ourselves, trying to build these things that at the very end sometimes are just golf course deals or things that don't really serve any purpose? And the budgeting mystery. If you've ever worked in public sector or in a particularly large organization, and I'm not going to be naming those organizations, but they are quite easy to imagine, you might have heard or maybe even dealt with a budget that has this magical property. So instead of a budget, let's talk about buying a car. Imagine that you need a car, and let's say you have £10,000 to spend on a car. So you do your little research, you go, all these auto trader ads, and then you read about cars, and maybe you ask your friends, maybe one of your friends, maybe they drive a car that you could maybe buy. And it turns out that you can actually spend £7,000 and buy a great car. You don't need 10 grand. So what would you do? You would buy the one for £7,000 and keep those 3 grand for maybe, I don't know, a holiday or something like that, maybe put a better stereo in it, whatever it is. Now, look back at what happens in so many of our workplaces. We have 10 grand to deliver a website. We can do it for 5. No, we'll build it for 10, because if we don't do it next year, we won't get another 10 grand to spend. Again, where's the logic gone? How does that work? The funny thing about public sector is, and that's a realization that I would like everyone to kind of have, that public sector works on our own money, for our own money. If we work in a public sector, we effectively pay ourselves a wage. That's public money being wasted, It's not like when a private organization wastes money on something. Fine, if they really want to, that's their problem. But, if it's a public sector thing, we're kind of getting into the moral aspect of a thing. Is it really cool to be wasting money of other people like that? And very rarely we're thinking about this. So those were my expectations, Agile, amazing, collaboration, order, innovative thinking, open-mindedness, efficiency, wow! And well, I kind of got this: chaos, politics, waterfall, wet everywhere. Legacy systems. Legacy is the word that we don't like, but let's face it, it's the word that's here all the time. And apathy that is killing us. So this is quite doom and gloom, and when I was doing this I was thinking, okay, I could go on like this forever, but that's not the point. The point is to actually change it. So I think that it would be worth talking about things that we can do to make a huge difference, because we can, and that is the best part. Yeah, let's look inwards, so to speak. I think that one of the things that we can do is to start a dialogue, internal dialogue, and also external dialogue with others, but start with the internal one. How truly efficient are we? I mean, who could really raise a hand and say that I have designed something truly innovative or revolutionary over the last 3 or 4 years? It'd be very hard. There would be people like this, of course, and I'm hoping there are, but certainly I cannot. And I've worked on some really pretty amazing projects, yeah? Innovation is just a buzzword that we use because it's cool. So, if we started thinking about these things, it might actually wake something up in the mass conscience of people that we work with, in our own. Can we change the way we communicate? I've seen many software development processes work, and I've seen many of them failing massively. And in my experience, they rarely fail because of resourcing, or because of money, or because of something else. It's mostly just communication. One thing that we do as digital professionals, we are pretty good at teaching other people our language, but brutally awful at actually communicating in their own. Now, if we take this analogy to the real world again, I'll use the one that actually I've heard from Jared Spool, which was an amazing thing that really opened my eyes. He said, when I'm walking into a restaurant that serves Spanish food, tapas or something, maybe even in Spain, it's much easier for me to actually learn few words of Spanish to be able to order a meal than to suddenly teach them English. Yeah? Yet our approach to so many processes that rely on communication is exactly opposite. We want everyone to speak our language. I want everyone to be a UX designer suddenly, and expect them to understand all the nonsense that I talk about when I talk about proto-personas and things. And so many developers I know who would talk to me in their own lingo, thinking that I'm unable to understand it. Luckily, I actually am, but what if they find a stakeholder that isn't? Yeah? Communication breakdown, and that's really what's screwing us. That's really what's breaking Agile and other processes. And what is the problem that we're trying to solve? We often think in terms of solutions, because we can. A website, mobile app, even a system, wider, bigger thing, system delivery of sorts. But if we only ask what is the problem in the first place, we might discover that actually all these things are not necessary, and we can just get by with something much, much smaller. Maybe it's to do with working closely with people and making them to understand each other. How often have I seen situations where, the product wasn't really delivering value, and we were looking to replace the product rather than just simply to talk to its users to understand what is it that they want in the first place. All these things are quite important, and we can make them work. And so there's this other concept that somebody explained to me a long time ago. Often we focus on things that our customers like, and we try to make them to like it even more. What if instead we focused on things that they really hate doing and just solved their problems like that? Instead of being told, oh, you're just bringing problems to the table, maybe one day we would be told, you are bringing problems to the table, that's great, because we can address them if we know what they are. If we know what our limitations are, if we know what our issues are with delivering something, we are actually able to help and build the best for the customer. Could we focus our efforts on outcomes instead of those pieces of delivery that we simply have to deliver? I don't know how many of you guys work on systems where you are being accounted for the thing that you've delivered this week or that month. But does it actually really matter if nobody's using it, or if nobody's content from looking at this? We can, but should we really do that? This is the thing needs to do with labels. I don't like labels. It's like when somebody's asking me, so what do you do? And I used to say, I'm a user experience designer, I'm a service designer. I have to say something. Same as with Agile. Is this Agile? Is it not Agile? Who actually cares what is it called? We shouldn't really worry about this. We need to give name to things, just be able to comprehend what's going on. But the labels are quite toxic, and I think that if we develop a communication language that takes everyone into account, these labels would slowly disappear. We would just be communicating freely and making that flow of information really efficient. So yeah, let's just start thinking about the holistic experience of what we do. Holistic experience, because funnily enough, as much as labels are kind of crap, we are all designers, everyone. We are building products, whether we are a project manager, a business analyst, a developer, a UX designer, service designer, whoever it is, the lady in the canteen who's serving everyone in this building food every day, she actually impacts the experience. She's impacting that delivery and that outcome. So the sooner we start thinking about it, the better. So, well, I think this is something to think about. Can we make things work? Can we just stop using terms like agile, schmagile, whatever? Who cares about that shit? Can we actually start thinking in logical terms, just as we would about our normal life? And can we bring a change to a table that would change the world to a better one? This is something that Einstein had said. It has become appallingly obvious that our technology has exceeded our humanity. And I think that he was right. Thank you very much.